Uh, Friends, my name is Kishore. First of all, thanks a lot for joining the Sitecore user group. I'm one of the co-founders here, along with my colleague here, Mr. Uh, Nizar. So, I kind of take this opportunity for everyone who has registered for this SUG. In fact, we are hoping that this is a good place for us to collaborate as well as share our experience on Sitecore. So before we kind of get going, a couple of quick meeting etiquettes. I kind of request everyone to kind of mics so that we are not getting disturbed with any other noise in between. And the second thing is we plan to record this session. There are a couple of people who couldn't make it session. So just wanted to record the session that way it can be reused for people who couldn't make it to the call. And lastly, in the interest of time, I kind of request everyone to park your questions till the end. That way, let's have a session and then open up for Q&A in the last. So with that note, today I just want to bring you everyone I just want to introduce you to Mike. So, 1 month back when we started the Sitecore user group, we were kind of thinking who should be the first person we should invite. And, a couple of my colleagues unanimously came out with this name. The most talked about person or the most vibrant person in LinkedIn community is Mike Reynolds. And the best thing is when I reached out to him with a request saying that can he, facilitate this SUG, given that we are new baby in town, without any hesitation, he said he's more than happy to do the honors for us. So with that note, I'll kind of open up the floor for Mike. Mike, once again, thanks a lot for joining. We are looking forward for this wonderful session, mate. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to share my screen. Make sure I do it right. Okay. You guys can see my screen. Everything's good.
Yes, mate.
Excellent. All right. I'm going to jump right into this. Um, all right. So we're going to talk about experience forms on Cycler 9 Plus. Before I get started, I just want to make some community notes, some things that are happening out there and things like that. I'm sure everybody's aware that Symposium is happening. Um, if you possibly can, you probably should go to this. I think the early bird rate is still going on. I don't remember the exact price, but it's probably going to end very shortly. So, grab on to that if you possibly can. If you can get your employer to pay for it, that's definitely a good thing. Um, Everybody, I hope, is aware of the community Slack. There are close to 4,000 people in here from around the world helping each other out in real time. If you're not on the Slack, click this link, fill out a form, and it'll be sent off to the site. Please be sure to follow the instructions on the form because I know a lot of people don't put in their profiles and things like that, and we're trying to keep recruiters out of the Slack so that it's a better experience for everybody. Another place you can go to for Cycler help is the Cycler Stack Exchange. This is a great way to ask questions where they'll remain more permanent on the internet. The Slack, we don't have that particular luxury because it's a free version and we lose history after a certain amount of time. Here is where you can actually have a question last forever. Get involved there. It's definitely a great tool to find and resource to find information about any problems you're having. Okay, who am I? Um, So I am, well, Mike Reynolds. I've been in MVP since 2014. I've been doing Sitecore for over 11 years, maybe 11 and a half years now. Started on version 5.2, all the way up to Sitecore 9 update 1. I think update 2 is out there, but I haven't touched it yet. There are different ways of getting in touch with me if you have any questions around this presentation or anything in general. You can find me on Twitter, or you can even get a hold of me on LinkedIn. But I think the best place to find me is on the Cycler community Slack because I'm always there 24/7, pretty much, if I'm sleeping, which I don't really sleep. But I am always there to help out, wherever possible, or even to tell you who could help you. Likewise, here's my blog. You can find all kinds of articles, or I think about 150 articles plus on different things in Sitecore, including experience forums, which is my latest topic. I'm also known by many different pictures and emojis. So if you see these on the Cycler Slack or on Twitter, that's probably what they're about. They're me. I've also been known to take funny photos and or have photos taken of me and tweeted. Um, I normally give this presentation with Cycler MVP Camruz Jaman, but he's in Canada saving the world by eating poutine and doing conveyor work. I wish he could be here. He's technically not that far away from me because where I live in the United States is very close to Canada, but he's kind of busy right now saving the world via search. Anyways, I'm going to jump to a different slide deck because why reinvent the wheel when you have slides already? Just to forewarn that this slide deck was from SlideCon Europe, that Kim Roos and I had done a presentation on experience forums in Berlin, Germany. The material here is the same, but in terms of code, it's different. But anyways, without further ado, both Camruz and I are known as the trolls on the Slack. You might see some funny things being said in there. Sometimes it might look a little off, and it might even look a little mean, but that's not what we mean at all. We're just there to have a little bit of fun, because when you have fun and you have a little laugh when you're trying to learn stuff, it helps you retain information better. So just keep that in mind. Wouldn't it be great if we could just go into Cycler and just build a forum, drag and drop, do things like that? You know, I know that a lot of you may have started on web forums for marketers, which we're going to jump into as a history. So web forums for marketers, I remember when this came out. I think it came out, yeah, it came out on version 6. I feel like it was even longer ago than 2009, but yeah, as you can see, that was 9 years ago. I remember when it came out, it was this promise that, hey, you can do all this cool stuff, but it took a lot of time before it got to where it is today, 9 years. You always had to install it as a separate package. You would just use the installation wizard, step through the instructions, and just cross your fingers and hope that things would start working. MVC support was only added in 7.2 for Sitecore, and that was in 2014. And when that came out, I remember, yes, I can do all kinds of stuff now. And it was kind of good. I mean, it wasn't, I'm not going to say it was perfect. There were things where you could change Razor views right on your file system and different things like that, but it wasn't the best thing in the world, because eventually some of those things that were in Razor views ended up getting baked into static HTML helper classes, and you couldn't really change markup on things. So I will say most of my blog posts I've ever written were written about web forms marketers, probably 30 to 40 posts. I had a count at one point, but don't remember it. But it's sad to see it go. Hopefully, well, it's not going anywhere yet until Experience Forms reaches feature parity with this, but it's definitely, I would say, a breath of fresh air to see something different. So sorry, web forms marketers, you served your purpose. You did very well. We're sorry to see you go. However, I'm going to say that with a tongue in cheek, because it's not going anywhere anytime soon, because it needs to reach, Forms needs to reach feature parity with web forms marketers in order to sunset it completely. All right, so Experience Forms. This is a brand new feature. It's nothing like, it didn't start on web forms marketers. Maybe parts of it were modeled after it, but it's completely a different thing. Web forms, the technology does not work on this. You can only use MVC for this, and I think that's a good thing, because I don't think anybody should be doing web forms anymore. Microsoft will stop supporting web forms very soon. I remember reading dates in either 2019, 2020, not really sure. Those dates keep changing on every article I keep reading, but definitely stop doing web forms if you are. Go over to MVC. It's a lot cleaner, a lot easier. It's 2018, guys. It's time to move. You can do drag and drop in here, which is something that would be cool if we had an experience editor, but we don't. I know that XSA has drag and drop functionality in it, but so does this. Finally, we can do multi-step page forms. What that means is you can create a wizard form with like previous and next buttons. You couldn't do that with web forms marketers without hacking it together with JavaScript to hide, I don't know, divs or things like that, and a lot of client-side validation, and it was a nightmare. This does not have to be installed separately. This comes with Sitecore 9. You install it and you can just start using it. There you go. I can start building forms without even doing anything special. Um, the documentation on this is probably the best I've ever seen in Sitecore to date. I have found, I don't know, multiple examples on how to do one thing. You know, custom fields. I think there's at least two examples on Sitecore.com about this. Um, Definitely have a read of this, and I will say that more than once during this presentation because I didn't do that, and I had made a mistake at the very beginning. There is something about setting this up. You have to set up a layout, which I'll get to. Follow the instructions on that because it's just not going to work if you don't do it. And everything in this, I almost called it a module, but it's not a module because it's part of the core platform. But this feature, everything in it is an item. So when you create, unlike web forms marketers, yeah, sure, things were items, but you had to bake certain things into XML settings and stuff like that and parameters. In here, there's a little bit of that, but it's more item driven. So you have items pointing to other items and things like that. So it's definitely more Sitecore centric. Um, One thing, yeah. So here's just I'm going to show this actually in an example, but yeah, here's the drag and drop. You get a panel on the right where you can drag fields right onto a panel like in the left plane, and it has a little spinny. You'll see things like that, and it's very cool. We'll see this in action though, so don't worry about this slide too much. Um, as you can see on the left-hand side, I was talking that everything is an item. Over in the content tree, you'll have items that represent the fields that you drag over into the right-hand side. And then everything that is set via a setting inside of the form builder on the right will be housed in the items on the left in the content tree. By the way, everything will end up, all your forms will end up in that forms parent folder at the top under /Sitecore. That's where everything ends up. Also, all settings, for forms will live under, well, forms or under the settings inside of system. Um, this is a really cool thing, and this comes right out of the box. So you can see how your form is performing. You can see it at the form level. You can also see it at the field level. You can turn this off if you want, but I think it might be turned on by default if I remember right. You can see how things are performing, and if a field isn't working out, you can change it. Or if a form isn't working out, you can just say, "Oh, I don't need this form anymore. I'll replace it with something else." So this is really good. We didn't have this in Web Forms Marketers. Um, this is stored in SQL Server, like all the form submissions. With Web Forms for Marketers, if you look back, it started on SQL Server, then moved to MongoDB, then it moved to, hey, I can do both, all the way over to SQL Server again. We're still on SQL Server. So yeah, everything will end up in, I think it has its own DB with its only 2 tables or something like that. Actually, there it is right on the left. That's all you have. It's very normalized. One thing to keep in mind is this is actually stored in clear text. There are ways of, and I'm going to get to this, of how to prevent clear text to be on your database in case you have a rogue DBA who gets angry and walks off with the sensitive information that's in your SQL Server tables. But we'll get to that momentarily. But here you go. This is where it ends up. All right. As I said before, this only works in MVC. You have to use the inside-out rendering technique in order to get this to work. And there are instructions on Sitecore.com about this. One thing I do want to note is don't forget to add these helper, method calls inside of your rendering for your layout. And the reason for this is it will work. Also, you get to specify your own style sheets and JavaScript files in here. I will show you where these live in the content tree, but keep in mind that these are separated by pipes. But follow the instructions on Sitecore.com. I didn't do it. Well, I didn't follow the instructions like I should have initially, and I built a form, and all of a sudden, hey, why is this not working? I don't understand this. It's particularly around AJAX requests on my form. Just didn't work at all. Actually, I never at one point didn't do anything. Do this. Follow the instructions. I'll say it 5 million times before this presentation's over, but just keep that in mind because it's important. I would read those instructions before you do anything else. Razor views or CSHTML files do live in the file system, and they live under, from your website root, they live under views, form builder, and field templates. This you can go in there and you can make changes to these if you wanted to, but I'm going to tell you it's probably a bad idea, especially when it comes to upgrades. Because let's say that if you look at the very towards the bottom, you see section.ch file that actually represents a div tag, and you can in your form builder you can set CSS classes and things like that, and it will contain other fields. Don't change the markup in there. You might be tempted to do that because it seems pretty quick and easy. But let's say Sitecore decides to change something on the section field, like add other attributes and things like that. When you go and upgrade, you may lose your stuff. Even though you have it in source control and you'll do a build, you're going to overwrite it when you do a build. Just what you can easily do, and I'm going to show this, is you could just do a copy and paste job on one of these guys and just rename the tag in your new field and just define the field inside of Sitecore. Done. We'll get to that. One thing I love about this module is that there's a pipeline virtually for everything. So the initialize pipeline, that's already something you're familiar with, I hope. There are pipeline processors in there that Forms adds. You can change. I don't know exactly what they do. I haven't looked at them yet, but you can go have a look. And hey, if you need to change something, you can easily change it there. There's a pipeline to render the form, render all the fields on the form, render a field on the form, get the model to the I would say razor view, register your submit actions. And submit actions is similar to how save actions were in WebForms Marketers, but they are a little different. Execute submit will execute any or all, I would say, submit actions that are bound to a button on your form. And then submitting errors, to the front end. There's so many pipelines here that you can go and change things if you wanted to. It's so I would say from very macro to very micro. There are so many different entry points into customizations into this feature. Definitely go have a play of these because you'll learn a lot about the module, and that's how I learned some things about this module, was by looking at these and experimenting. But just know that if there's a will, there's a way you can make a customization if you need it. All right, let's have a look at this. May the demo gods smile upon me. I'm going to drink my coffee to that. And let me just reload this in case it logged me out. So everybody's familiar with this screen. This is the Launchpad in Sitecore. As you can see, we have all kinds of buttons for different things, but we have a one for forms. You click on that. And I got some forms here. One of my forms is the coolest form ever. But one thing I'm going to point out is if you could start doing a search for forms up here. And apparently it's my index is right up to date, but if I do that, I'm going to get them all back. Everything here is built in Speak virtually. You can do a sort on your forms and things like that. You can edit a form by doing that. This little drop down over here that might be something you'll miss because I think I missed it at one point. You can export your form data here. So what this does is it'll force download a CSV. Unfortunately, unlike WebForms Marketers that had a forms report where you could see form submissions right here inside of Sitecore, this does not exist in Forms yet. I say yet in quotes because I actually don't know what's coming, but I'm hoping something like that will come. It would be nice to see forms or submissions right here inside of Sitecore, just as a quick gauge or even something to help us as developers to troubleshoot things. You can, in theory, add to this collection up here, but you have to be, I don't know. I'm going to say you're going to have to be no speak, and I don't know speak very well, but there are ways around that, which I'm not going to talk about because it's probably something you shouldn't do. Well, I'll mention it. You can go into the core database and start mucking around with things, but you need to have Sitecore Rocks installed, and then you can start editing things and creating speak, I would say, things for this. You can see there's different things. There's a big button here to create a form. Let's create that. You can do a search. You can say, hey, I had a form that I want to use as a template. You can do a search on that. You can find it. In this case, I'm just going to do a blank form just to show you how easy this is. And it's doing a little bit of spinning. Hopefully that's good or bad. I'm not sure. Hopefully not bad. So here we go. Here's our form builder. Start dragging things over here. There we go. And if you click on a field that you just dragged over there, you can see that you can change things on your field. So if I don't like this label, I can say whatever, and say by default if you want this checked or whatever. You can. This field importance bit is about whether it's required or not. So if it's mandatory, it's a required field. Optional means, well, it's not required. You can set CSS classes on this, like this. A lot of the fields, if they have labels, will have another CSS class field for setting style on a label or something like that. Um, you know, you can do all kinds of stuff with this. Here's this performance tracking stuff I was talking about. You can turn this off by ticking this box at the field level, and then there's one at the form level, up, even higher up. But here, see this tick box here, allow save. So I'll get to this, but this is keep in the back of your mind. This is something that you might want to consider if you're doing GDPR stuff, especially with email addresses. I'll get to that momentarily, but just know that that's there. But see, I just clicked it, changed it. One thing to keep in mind, if you click away, you're going to lose all your changes. You have to click save, or that's it. I think there's a dialog that yells at you if you try to back away. Yeah, definitely, like anything, whether you're in Sitecore, Microsoft Word, or anything, make sure you save frequently. And then let's call it Jedi form. I'm just going to save it for a second. I'm going to drag more stuff onto here. I'll do a number. I'm just doing random things. And then you can do multiple fields. You can drag them and wait. Things for passwords and things like that. But see, that one's still moving. Let's have a look at this one. So this is a number field. You can do a min, max value, and then step. So step is the incremental. There are validations bound to certain fields. You can, in theory, create your own validators. I haven't done it myself yet. It's one of the things I'm hoping to look into eventually. But at the moment, you get stock ones that you can just use for different fields. So they're for an email field. There are ones for email validation and things like that. Let's just, I don't know, put random things in here. If I save that, let's save this. Is it saving? I hope it's saved. Yeah, it was saved right here. See the dialogue? So a lot of this stuff is pretty fast. Yeah, when you're doing development, I'm used to things spinning, but this is pretty quick. I'm going to jump over here real quick just to show you that, hey, when I did the save, it created items over here. So I have an item that represents the forum. It will point to a field type of forum, even though that's not really a field, but everything is set in there. You can have Ajax be enabled for these forums, and it works by using this tick box. You don't have to make your own, I don't know, JavaScript or use jQuery or anything to do that. It would work for you. Remember how I talked about those helpers? You had one for styles and then one for scripts. Well, it's reading from these fields here. You can have multiple, I would say, JavaScripts and CSS style sheets on here, but they're separated by a pipe. I think it's the root. I forget where the root of this lives. It's looking for a particular folder. You just have to go find it on the file system, but it is there. I'm not going to go show that because I'll have to fish around, and I didn't open up File Explorer like I thought I would have. But anyways, have a play with that. You might be able to change it somewhere. I haven't really dug into this, but have it point somewhere else in a different folder in your file system. But it might be possible, but I don't really know. This checkbox will say whether this form is a template or not. So as I remember how we were creating a form and you could do a search to find a form that would represent a template. Well, this is how it knows. It's based off of this tick box here. If we go look at a form, we looked at the checkbox. That's the first one I dragged on there. Everything I said in the form builder is here. So there is a default value. I think it was checked, and that's probably in here somewhere, but Here's validations for this. I don't think a checkbox added any validation, but if you needed something custom, you can easily add something and it will go into this list here. By the way, a lot of the things that are for this module, for like pick lists, or like let's say, a tree list like this, would live under system and forms, or settings and forms, I should say. And the validations live here. So this folder is what we just looked at up here. I know I'm going to be jumping around a lot, but that's what that list is here. One other thing to look at is all the field types are defined in here. All of them except for custom. I think I was experimenting and I couldn't get this to work. And that's what these are all right here. So as you can see, there is no custom section because it doesn't read from this list verbatim. What ends up happening is there, in Speak, I think this might be hard-coded, these locations. So keep that in mind. If you wanted to add a custom folder in there, it's not going to work because mine didn't. But here you go. You have all kinds of stuff in here. You have a number and things like that. Number field and checkbox and all that good stuff. Structure, we had our section. I'm going to show custom stuff in, custom structure fields in here momentarily, but I had to add them within the existing out-of-the-box folders. With that said, if you needed something to work, I would say Helixy style with the Helix folder structures, it's not going to work for you because it won't read fit for them without you modifying the Speak application. I haven't ventured into that, and I did dive into it a bit, and it looked like it would be hard. Keep that in mind if you need to do anything special. Submit actions, I mentioned them already, but you get a bunch of out-of-the-box submit actions. Not all of these out of the box, but a lot of them do come out of the box. The only ones that are here that are not out of the box are, I would say, this guy and probably this guy. And I'm not going to show this guy, but I will show this guy. But you get a lot of things out of the box. Submit actions, if you needed to send an email, it ties into EXM. You just have to have EXM, kind of configured and ready to go. If you wanted to do something simple, like send a simple email, well, you'll have to build that yourself. And I'll get into that, but I'm not going to show that, but I'll talk about it just momentarily. But just wanted to give you a survey of the land here. Everything here is an item, and you can define things within here for settings, field types and things like that. Or, at the form level where you have forms that serve as either templates or just regular forms, you can go and change them in here, and everything will point to another item somewhere as it's, I don't know, let's say, source of truth for settings and things like that. Like, for example, if you look at this with the multi-line text field, and then it, will point to a model, and the get model pipeline that I talked about will go read this and figure out that and create the instance and give it back to, let's say, the controller that governs this, that in turn will give it to the Razor view in the front end. I know it was very multi-winded. One thing to keep in mind is all of these fields have a property editor, I would say drop tree. And these are coming from the core database. I think you need to, well, in theory, you should use Speak. I think it's CycleRocks to get the stuff configured, but it's not a requirement, like hard. Well, it depends on who you ask. It's somebody who will say, "Oh yeah, you should use CycleRocks for this." But I have an example that I'm probably not going to show, but I showed it at SugCon. But you can easily define custom things in here through the core database. It just takes a little bit more time, but with Rocks, it just makes it faster. These field templates here point to another drop list or a drop tree, I'd say. I'm not going to go too much into this. It's a homework assignment. Go look into this yourself. But definitely, there's a lot of stuff to look at here. I did mention, let's say you needed something. I don't know, something like a section tag, which is a div in Sitecore Experience Forms vernacular. But you needed, let's say, something like I don't know, let's say span. Now you want to, span to, just easily, hey, I want a span tag to encompass a bunch of different fields. So what you can do is just, as I said, you go look at that section.cs HTML file, do a copy and paste, and then you can just change this to be whatever you want. Everything here, I don't know if I still have this open in my thing here, and I don't. Here it is. So this is the out of the box section field. This is what comes with Cycler, stock. And as you can see, I created, one for a span tag. It looks exactly like it, except I changed the HTML element. Nothing is different. CSS class part is different. The model is the same. This is out of the box. And all I did was created my Razor view, like as you can see here, and I moved it to a certain location on my file system, which you can see where that lives by going when we go and look at the actual structure for this. So that's the span guy here. This is relative to the root of my website or my Cycler instance. This is it. And then everything else was the same. I just, did a copy and paste on section. And then I renamed it to span container. And then I had it point here. Everything else here is the same. And that was a quick way to meet requirements for markup on a particular form that I had. And I'm going to show that in a second because I want to also discuss this with another one. So I'm sure you guys have been doing HTML forms for a while, I hope. If not, if you haven't done forms for a while, and I'm not saying Cycler forms, but forms in general, you're going to run into something called a field set. And that is basically just something that contains a bunch of fields on a form, HTML vernacular, not Cycler vernacular. Anyways, I needed something to contain a bunch of, I would say, form fields inside of a field set tag. So I did the same thing as I did with section, did a copy and paste, changed this to field set, went into Sitecore, and just did a copy and paste in section like that, renamed this to field set container, and just had it point to the CSHTML file on my file system of this particular field. That's it. Done. This took probably about 30 seconds, maybe a minute. I maybe even 2 minutes because I could have got a cup of coffee in between. But there you go. You can easily meet requirements for, let's say, markup that you inherited from front-end developers. Or if you're the front-end developer and you're stuck building this, just know that you can go in, do whatever you want. You can have your own. If you want to have some crazy markup, do some marquee tags and make things go back and forth, which you probably shouldn't do, but I do it all the time in examples. You could do that, and you can create a custom field for that. But, by the way, the marquee tag makes a great April Fool's joke for people. But anyways, don't use that at all because that tag is from like the early 90s, and really it's terrible. I use it as a joke. Anyways, that's pretty much it. Things can get a lot more complicated if you want. If you need something like, I don't know, let's say, I don't know, let's say you need a custom email field that does, certain things like, they're, for ADA compliance or other like things for people who have disabilities, you might have to add ARIA labels or attributes to things. So I'm just going to move this over a little bit because I can't see. But as you can see, I have some ARIA attributes in here, nothing crazy, but I had to set these myself, this doesn't live out of the box. These ARIA tags for this email field. The email field itself does live out of the box, but you're given everything here except for the ARIA bits. And well, I created a custom field with the ARIA stuff, and then I set those attributes by just using stuff here. I don't know if I'll be able to jump to all this code because there is a lot of code here. And then last time I tried to show this, I got, I pretty much lost the audience because there's so many different levels of this. I'm hoping I may blog about something like this, so that's where it's probably better contained. But keep in mind that everything here is stored in Cycler DI. If you're not using Cycler DI, you should be using DI. The IOC container comes out of the box since 8.2. It's using the .NET Core dependency injection framework. It's a Microsoft thing. Look into it. It promotes cleaner code, solid principles. I'm probably, hopefully, preaching to the choir here, but that's what you should be doing. But yeah, I just wanted to show this because you can do all kinds of stuff with this. And for this particular email field that I created, I had to do some custom validation for this as well. And it was a little bit different than doing the validators that you set in the, I would say, the multi list or whatever that thing was that I showed you. But I did everything in here and I could. And I just looked at the email field that comes out of the box as a model for that. Because hey, it's already been done. Somebody else already did it. This is the framework in place. Let me just see how they do it. And then boom, I can go and do that. Oh, I did jump around a little bit. I did want to show something. So inside of here, so actually that yelled at me even though it was right. In show config, this is the config of everything in my Cycler instance. As you can see, experience forms is here. There are 255 references to this one. This is not a vanilla instance. However, I didn't add a lot of things. So I'm sure there are, I'm not going to say there's 255 or 250, but there probably is over 200 out of the box references to experience forms here. Likewise, there's a lot of stuff in here in the Cycler container. So this is the, I don't know if you guys hopefully use an IOC for Cycler out of the box. You should be. If you're not, like I said, shame on you and go learn about it. I have presentations on YouTube about it. There are lots of things in experience forms that come out of the box in the Cycler container. So what does that mean? Well, if you want to change the way functionality works on here, but still adhere to the interfaces that are here given to you, you can change this in the container as long as you meet the particular, let's say, interface or base class, or AKA service type if you're a big DI person. But on the left-hand side are the service types or base classes or interfaces or whatever. And then over here on the right-hand side are the implementations. So if you wanted to change, let's say, the way field tracking works or whatever, I mean, this might be a place to do it. You have a controller here that implements something over on the left-hand side. You can change that using, let's say a configurator or even like through configuration. And then you can set the lifetime on that particular service. And, I would just see how they do it here. Definitely don't deviate from the lifetimes just in case that there was a reason why they made something transient or singleton or whatever. I'm a big proponent of having things be singleton because I don't think things should have state unless you need it to, but if you need state, obviously you use either scope or transient or something like that. But yeah. I'm not going to go into DI too much because this is not what this presentation is about, but definitely learn about DI if you're not using it. But yeah, as I mentioned, 110 things here. Now, some of these things are custom things I built. Some of them are not. They're out-of-box pieces. But just know that here things are in the container, and you can easily go and change it if you want to. What else do we have? I do want to go back here quickly because I did jump over some bits. I did mention that you can go and look and see, hey, I want to see, I clicked on that, I shouldn't have. I want to do an export of the data. I said there was a forced download bit. So I want to select this guy because he has data. Oh, looks like I don't. All right, so I must have done something where I shouldn't have. Anyways, I have an error up here. So you get all the error messages up here. What this will do is, like I said, it'll force a download, and then you'll see, hey, CSV file, blah, blah, blah. Just wanted to show that bit, but I couldn't because it's throwing an error for whatever reason. Anyways, I did build a form, like something that looks like this. As you can see, I have the best CSS skills in the world because it's ugly looking. Click this, and my validation message shows up at the wrong place. Let's just wait for this to go through. Hey, look at that. It's terrible. But this is a form that contains a field set and a span container fields that I showed, and that custom email field with the ARIA stuff on it. If I can go look at this quickly, let's see if that's even there. As you can see, there's ARIA stuff in here somewhere, blah, blah, blah. Here's an example, ARIA invalid. That's one of my custom fields. And then this is custom markup for custom validation for this field. I was talking about that validator that I'm going to blog about eventually, but that's what this all did. It worked. I see I'm in preview mode inside the Experience Editor, and boom, you know, it's working in here with this bit. And then blah, 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 blah. And then I'm just going to do a submit on this guy. I don't know if Ajax was turned on for this, but if you do have it turned on, I don't think it works inside of the Experience Editor anyways, but that's how it is. That's really it for that. I'm not going to dive too much into this, but if we go look at this guy real quick, you can see we have a failed set container, span container, and then other things inside of it, another span container, and then I have my custom email field, and then I have a button for this. Let's let this load real quick. And just basic things like this. But look, I have a submit action bound to this button. Now this is a custom submit action that I don't think I have time to show, but I'll blog about it. It's about getting dependency injection for Sitecore to work inside of this framework, because it works in a lot of bits, as I showed you. There's a lot of things in the container here, but not everything's in the container. So validators that I showed do not live in the container, and neither do submit actions. Those are created using reflection behind the scenes. However, for me, that didn't sit very well. So I wanted a way to make DI work for those bits, and I did. And that's what this injectable submit action was all about. I needed that to test a submit action that I could take from the container and use. My last blog post was about getting DI kind of set up a little bit for this, but it was really a setup framework for anything. In theory, that blog post will work for web forms marketers or anything that has a type field on it. I will have a follow-up blog post to talk about this bit here, but I'm not going to talk about that now, but I'm just want to show you there are submit actions that you can bind to buttons, and you can have multiple ones set up if you wanted. I'm not going to put another one, but, and that's really it. Oh, and this is an example of a wizard form. It's a multi-step form. The last page of the form is just the confirmation message. So if you have a form and you want to show a confirmation message, this is how you do it. These are page fields, and this form has 2 pages. We can have 10 pages or whatever amount of pages you want. And you're going to put previous and next buttons, and those are easily toggled by this drop down here, previous and next. There is no, I would say, navigation step to make it jump to, I don't know, let's say you fill out a bunch of stuff and you want to go to like step 5 or something. There's nothing like that out of the box, but I think you could easily, in theory, customize this to make that work. On these particular navigation steps, there is a value that will let you go to a X number step or whatever. I experimented with that, and I don't remember what my results were, but I think in theory it's there, or it's got to be there very soon. So in the interest of time, I have to jump back to the presentation because I think we're running out of time. So one thing to keep in mind, just like Webforce Marketers, there is a data provider for this that will give you, I don't know, entry into how where this is being saved. I would say form entries and things like that, like submissions. This has its own data provider. It's I think it's called Experience. I forget. It's iExperience Forms Data Provider, something like that. You can, in theory, go change this and have it do whatever you want. You can make it. Let's say you don't like SQL Server and you're a MongoDB guy. You can have it go to MongoDB or CouchDB or whatever flavor of NoSQL DB that you like. Also, you can have it encrypt data as well. So I wrote a blog post about how to set up one of these guys to do encryption for form data. The reason why I did that is it's basically for, I don't know, nostalgic reasons, because I had built something like that on Web Forms Marketers many years ago and blogged about it, so I did the same thing on here. However, keep in mind that, well, you can easily encrypt data using MS SQL Server 2016. But, we are developers and we want to have our jobs and have something to do. So we go and create things. Anyways, I say that, with fun. Just definitely look for solutions that are probably in the best interest of your clients to save them money. Or, it depends on the requirements. Also, like I said before, you have this allow save checkbox on fields. Um, keep this in mind for GDPR. If the I don't say end user doesn't want their email address saved for whatever reason, you can turn this off, and you don't have to save their stuff. But keep in mind, you want to do something with this email address, right? You're not just going to collect, have it on your form and do nothing with it. So you could do something in a submit action and send it off. But this is how you shut it off. You don't have to do anything special. All right. So yeah, there are some things missing on here, compared to WebForms marketers. And keep in mind that this is only version 1 of Experience Forms. I'm sure multiple versions are coming, but nobody knows when. But they are coming, hopefully. WebForms marketers has been around for 9 years, so it's going to take a little bit of time for Experience Forms to reach feature parity. But I don't know. I would say I expect it to be quicker than 9 years, but we never know. There are certain fields missing in here. I'm not going to go into the details of that. You can go have a look yourself. But rules engine bits are missing. So in WebForms for marketers, you could have the rules like set up and have conditional rules to show different things on the forms and things like that. But this doesn't exist in here. There are submit actions missing. For example, like I mentioned before, there's simple send an email action that does not exist in here. You'd have to build it yourself. It wouldn't be difficult, but still, you have to build it yourself, and that requires time and money in work. Uh, this doesn't work on Experience Editor, so if you go in the Experience Editor, as I was in preview mode, if I jumped over back to edit mode, you can't edit anything. It doesn't work that way. Everything has to be done in the form builder, or after the form builder, you would do it in content tree under forms, on an item. Uh, multi-site support doesn't work in here. As I had mentioned, those different folders that, let's say you want a Helix structure, you can't do that either, or a multi-site or anything like that. Now, what do I mean by that? So if it go back into Sitecore and go back into this guy up here where the forms are, you can't, the form builder, you can't create a folder to house these. You can do it like this if you want, but over in the form builder, you can't do that in here. It won't let you, but it will let you find it, but you just can't create the folder from here. So keep that in mind. It's not there. Maybe in the future it'll be there, but it's not there right now. Workflow doesn't work in here. It's not supported. It wasn't supported in WebForms marketers either, I don't believe, but it's not in here either. And there's no real event queue in here. There's no event queue at all. I know EXM has an event queue, and maybe Cycle will tie into that in the future. So you can have one central thing, maybe it'll be a foundational thing, have it just tie into that. But right now, there's nothing there. So you have to roll your own thing. You want to migrate from WebForms marketers to Experience Forms? Well, it's not going to happen. At least nobody, Sitecore is not going to help. I'm not going to help. It doesn't make sense. They're two different things. It's like trying to make apple juice from an orange. It ain't happening. If you want to do that and try to do that, you'll probably be doing it for months, and you'll have probably like high blood pressure when it's over, and maybe be feel really ill. But it's just not happening. And that's it. Are there any questions from anybody?
Yeah, Mike, just one quick question. You showed us as to how to enable form performance, right? Where do I go and look at the content as such?
Oh, you want to see how that works?
Yeah.
Let's jump in here. Let's see if this will let me do it. So one of the things to keep in mind, and you can see me doing it, is anytime you click here, it's going to go into the edit. I think, yeah, you can look at the form performance by in this panel, and you click on this tab. And as you can see, I don't have a lot of anything here, but that's how you look at it at the form level. But if you want to look at it at the field level, I think you have to go in here. Let's say I want to look at this, and then you click on this tab here. Does that answer your question?
Understood, Mike. Thank you.
All right, no problem. Any other questions?
Mike, is this integrated with EXM?
The integration is basically, so if you go look at the submit actions, there is a send email campaign message. So this is how it integrates with the XM.
Okay.
That's all you get. But yeah, so you have to set up the other bits, in EXM let's say the email confirmation template and things like that. But this is out of the box, this submit action.
Okay. In the same instance, can we use both WFFM and the Sitecore forms as well, right?
Yes. So since they are completely different, you can use both at the same time. Is that a good idea? I don't know. It depends on how you look at it. Maybe you need features in web forms for marketers, but you don't have the time to build it in here. You could, in theory, have both running, but just keep in mind that whenever web forms for marketers is not supported anymore, it might be a pain, and you'll have to convert it over to Experience Forms. But sure, you can have both running at the same time.
Okay. Thanks.
No problem. Any other questions?
Mike, one more question, not actually related to Sitecore Experience Forms, but in general, wanted to understand from your experience, how is Sitecore Pass evolving? In the market, is there a significant acceptance to Sitecore Pass now in the market, or still it is more on the IaaS mode?
PaaS, that's a good question. I haven't been keeping up with it, and so that's bad. But I guess I can't answer your question. That's a good question for either Stack Exchange or even the Slack. We have an Azure channel where we talk about PaaS and things like that on Slack, and there could even be like an Azure topic or something on the Stack Exchange. But I would definitely go ask in there, and I think some of the product guys are in there, and they might be able to tell you.
Sure, mate. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? All right. I guess there are no other questions. I just want to thank you guys for having me. And
Actually,
yeah, it was fun.
yeah,
Sorry?
thank you. So actually, we would also like to thank you, Mike, for such an
Thank you.
insightful webinar on Sitecore Experience Forms. So we really appreciate it, and definitely looking forward to many such sessions from you.
Oh, thank you so much.
And talking to the participant, I hope all of you enjoyed today's session by Mike. So it was indeed excellent. Just wanted to highlight that we are planning for more webinars and meetups in the upcoming months. We'd be very much like you all to be part of it, and request your friends to be part of it as well. I would like to take this opportunity to thank each one of you on the call for being part of our first ever webinar from SUG Chennai team. This webinar would not be a success without your participation. Thank you.
Absolutely. And in fact, I kind of quickly have to confess that this being our first webinar, there had been some hiccups in terms of how much participants a Google Hangout can actually allow. So, I started getting a lot of messages and pings saying that, boss, I'm not allowed to log in. So I kind of apologize for people who couldn't make it. The session is getting recorded. We will be publishing it in our SUG portal as well. But I can promise you next time when we sign up, I'll make sure there is enough room available for rest of the folks also to join. So with that note, I thank Mike once again. Mike, the sorry part is I'll keep troubling you now and then.
No.
You have given a best presentation. So stay tuned to hear more from me.
Yeah. Well, there's never any troubles. So, we're all in this together to learn together and share together and just grow together.
Absolutely, mate. Appreciate that. Thanks a lot once again, and have a great day to you, mate. And thank you, guys. Thank you for joining. Thank you.
As well. Cheers. Thank you.
Bye.